Opposition parties, civil society groups, and even private citizens have started reacting to the recent presidential parley, a media parley, which of course had some journalists from some media houses. The People's Democratic Party, for instance, has said that the presidential media parley confirms the administration's insensitivity to the current widespread hardship and suffering being faced by Nigerians, resulting from the ill-implemented and anti-people policies of the All Progressives Congress. The People's Democratic Party took issues with the president's assertion that he has no regrets about the abrupt removal of the fuel subsidy, and also the dispute, the absence of cushioning measures to mitigate its economic impact. Ologunagba noted that this decision had led to the crippling effect on the productive sector and also skyrocketing living costs and worsening poverty. Well, joining me on the program to discuss this is Charles Oludare. He's a public affairs analyst. He joins from Texas in the U.S. He joins virtually. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dako, for having me.
All right, let me start by asking you this first. What do you make of what transpired just a few days ago between the president and some members of the press, where the president had his first ever media parley in this administration and touched on some key issues? Do you think that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed?
Yeah, in my opinion, by and large, I feel like that was a very successful media outing. And I've always said this for years and clamored for the president to be put in such a situation because he becomes more personable and more relatable in that regard. You know, like the interview is always going to be like a Rorschach test. Your perception, your perspective will be based on your perception of the person. So if you love the president, you will say that was the best, and if you don't like him, you will criticize every single thing he says. But it's very important because the president at the time, he has the command of the facts and the what's it called and the thinking, and he had the time to at least convince a few people about the policies that he has implemented. And while there might be pockets that may sound as if the president was not sensitive to the pain of the people based on the criticism of the opposition, you would understand that when he was told to address Nigerians, he addressed them forthright and it was honest with them, because a lot of the policies that he tried to justify were very, very necessary. So anybody that it is about being cruel to be kind. I think that was William Shakespeare, so that the bad begin but the worst is avoided. Whatever hardship that Nigeria is going through right now is the necessary hardship that will lead Nigeria onto the path of prosperity, that will lead my own generation onto the path of prosperity. And that was what the president tried to articulate in that media media parley. And I feel like he should have more of it. They should have been doing it for a very long time. It will benefit from a town hall to talk directly to Nigerian people. A town hall is still different than Bala Blue. It's better. So we should have more of this.
Okay, so you're saying that this, in your words, this town hall was pretty much different.
Yes, it's different from every other speech that the president has given. Like,
okay.
When the president reads out the speech, and those are not his words.
I'm sorry, I'm going to pick on you on some of the issues that were discussed. Or maybe you might even have a varying reaction, because I know that part of the issues discussed has to do with the issue of the removal of the subsidy on petrol, which the president said he has no regrets. There was also the issue of the cost of governance, and the president assertively did say that he will not shrink his cabinet. And then price control, food insecurity, agriculture, and then of course general security matters too. But let's pick it piecemeal. Let's start with the issue of the petrol subsidy removal. The president did say he has no regrets.
Yes, and those were the part of the reasons why I supported him during the election. There is no regret.
You said those are the parts of the reasons why you supported him during the elections.
yes, to remove this fuel subsidy. It is a necessary pain. And let me give you a personal experience in my profession. When I was practicing, if after surgery, if I want to remove the plaster, the brown plasters that are very hard, if I take time to pull it out slowly, the patient will feel pain for like maybe 30 minutes struggling with you. So do you know what I sometimes do? I pull it out as fast as I can once. So that under 1 second, the pain has been felt, the pain is intense, but then that is it, as opposed to suffering my patient for 30 minutes, trying to pull it out bit by bit. Now, if there was a way that I could use another plaster, that I can do it gently and the patient will not feel pain, I would have chosen that, but there was no other way. So if anybody can tell any Nigerian or tell me that there is a way whereby these subsidies will be removed, even in a piecemeal fashion, and it will not cause pain, then they can probably try it. It is impossible to remove any subsidy without causing pain. So even though the presidency, and we can criticize them for not being forthright with Nigeria at a point in time, because once they first removed the fuel subsidy and they floated the exchange rates, the price of fuel went up and they kept on paying subsidy without acknowledging it. So those are things that you can definitely criticize, but the fuel subsidy needed to go because, like I've always said, it is a volume business. If the presidency is subsidizing, let's say 50 naira per petrol liter, and you only use 10 liters a day, but the rich man can use 10,000 liters a day on all his businesses. So who is getting the subsidy? Is it you that you are using 10 liters, or the person that is using 10,000 liters? So definitely the impact of the subsidy and the pain is going to be more on the masses, because they are the ones that don't have enough cushion. But the money that the government is supposed to spend on the masses to improve their quality of life and get them out of poverty is what they are.
But some have also argued. But some have also argued that the issue might not even have been with the outright removal of the subsidy regime, given the fact that even across the world, citizens do enjoy some form of rebate from their government. I mean, even in advanced countries that we make reference to, you can get the basics, at subsidized rates. The government actually does do something for you. And for an average Nigerian, maybe that's the only thing you get that is free. It's not even free, that is subsidized from the government. So couldn't it just have been an issue of maybe proper management of the subsidy? Because you keep, the reference, it was a hotbed for corruption. Some people are inflating prices to collect more money. Some will collect money and not deliver. I mean, that's a clear case of mismanagement, and tightening up of leakages. So that could have been an option, given the fact that this is the lifeline of Nigerians and the economy.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about in terms of the management of the subsidy. But even if the subsidy had been properly managed, Nigerians, you and me, would still be using our own taxpayers' money and money from our natural resources to subsidize the lifestyle of the rich. The subsidy was an opium for the masses so that they don't feel the pain of their poverty, but it was opulence for the rich who don't really need it. So I understand what you're talking about, maybe trying to clean up the house. We need to do that too. But even with a clean house, the subsidy was not benefiting the poor. And it is a bitter pill that we needed to swallow. It is like you have two bitter pills. You can choose one that will kill you or choose one that will kick you. The pill that the president chose was one that will kick us, but it will not kill us, and we will recover from it, because now we can have investments in roads that will make our businesses better and will improve our quality of life. We can have investments in schools. Those are the things that all Nigerians will benefit from. If you have good hospitals, whereby, God forbid, should you need it, you can have the best of care. Now, when you talk about I believe you also mentioned the fact that the president, I kind of lost my train of thought, but my point is that this subsidy, there is no way you can keep on sustaining it and as in paying it for the poor. So yes, definitely every government or every advanced country has a subsidy for their people. So the president can still be subsidizing fuel that farmers are using in their tractors, letting them take it out of their they can subsidize the fuel that transporters are using in their cars. In the United States, if you are in the transport business, the government gives you about 69 cents per mile that you drive. So in that way, the money that you are spending on fuel to drive your car, you are taking it back. so that you can have business. So at the end of the day, you don't pay taxes and all those things. So those are things that the government can still put in place. I don't believe that they have done enough, in my own opinion, to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy, because if you want to improve transportation of food and all those things, you need to allow cars to come in, because our the way we transport our food leads to a lot of post-harvest losses and all those things. So there are many more things that they can do.
Okay,
keeping that subsidy is opulence for the rich.
Okay, now let's move away from the subsidy and look at another issue, which of course is the cost of governance. We know that the administration has said, particularly the president has told Nigerians to endure, to persevere, to, of course, adjust, and that things will get better. He even said in that speech that he has a friend, who had a Rolls Royce and who dropped from using about 5 Rolls Royce to using a Honda Accord, and that Nigerians should know how to manage resources, particularly he made reference to electricity, for instance. But again, we are seeing an administration that has what many would refer to as an over-bloated cabinet. And the president assertively said he's not going to shrink that cabinet. We're also seeing an administration that is allocating billions to SUVs and renovation of existing public quarters. So, I mean, for many observers, this looks like hypocrisy.
Well, thank you very much for that. It is definitely, you can criticize a lot of things, and sometimes the devil is in the detail. But for me, the Yoruba people will say, that is to say, if your knife is not sharp and you try to cut the grass, it is at the end that you're going to regret not using a sharp cutlass to try to cut grass, right? So if there was a need to develop so many things, and the president in his own discretion, feels he needed this much cabinet, I think what we need to focus on in what are they doing, what are they achieving, and he also should be open to reevaluating and reviewing his cabinet numbers. Should there be any ministry or any minister that is not yielding any form of results? But when it comes to like renovation and all, I really don't know much about it. The ones that they have criticized, to me, I feel might be a justified expenditure, especially maybe like the private jet that people criticized a lot. I feel like based on the numbers they were given, it made more sense for Nigeria to get a new one than to keep on spending so much money that within 5 years you have spent enough money to buy a new one in repairing, when you can get a newer one that will last you for 20 years again. So, and the renovation space, yeah, maybe there are some that are not justifiable. Maybe there are some that are justifiable, but the essence is that when we want to cut the cost of governance, it definitely has to go across board, and a lot can still be done in terms of cutting the cost of governance, the long convoys of ministers and all of that. The president tried to avoid it. We also, as a people, need to reorientate ourselves and change our all our perspective about oppression.
So are you saying that? In terms of cutting the cost of governance, I mean, are you suggesting that the president, given the size of his cabinet and what many might refer to as frivolous spending on SUVs and renovation, is in order?
No, not at all. In my own opinion, I don't even think the government should be buying cars for government officials. They are getting salaries. You don't get a special car because you are a teacher or something. I believe they can give them a car loan and let them pay for it out of their pockets. That is my own opinion personally. I feel like if a minister has a car from the government can give him a loan, and out of his salary over the next 5 years, he pays it and goes away with it. That is, to me, my own personal opinion, in an unnecessary giveaway, an unnecessary burden on the pockets of the average, Nigerian. That is my own personal opinion. So yes, those are ways that budget can be cut. And this thing is not also only about the president. If you, I mean, like you would know, based on government, the legislature they have the power of the purse. So the House of Assembly and the Senate definitely can do a lot to cut out all these excesses, because if they don't approve it, the presidency cannot spend it. So they too also need to take responsibility. But everybody wants to get brand new cars and all these things, and they keep budgeting for it. We need to reorientate, we need to rehabilitate, we need to change our thinking. So I will not justify those spending, and even the renovations, I don't know the details. So some of them might be fraudulent, I don't know. But when it comes to the number of ministers, I feel like if he has goals and set out goals for them, and he feels like you need to create maybe a Ministry of Livestock so that you can get, our food supply and the value chain of animal husbandry and all in order so that our people can have food to eat. If he feels he needs to create a what's it called, a new ministry for that, we should judge that decision by the output or by the result, by the efficiency of that ministry. If it justifies itself, then the ends will have justified its means. But if it doesn't, then let them scrap it. I feel like there should be a continuous review, a more frequent review of the activities of these ministers. So that is the one that I can say I can justify. I don't know much about.
There was a recent review of the activities of some of the ministers. Some were dropped, some were brought in, while a few were added, right? Even though they claim this, is meant to be performance-based, but the criteria or the reasons wasn't clearly really spelled out. So I mean, that brings me to the issue of review that you were talking about. We saw that happen a few months back. So, I mean, does that really make much of a difference in terms of performance?
Yeah. To me, I feel like it made much of a difference.
Because I'm sorry, for many that observed the last review, it felt pretty much political than performance-based.
Well, those criticisms might be fair criticism, but for me, like, it's like if you are driving, if your friend was driving and he got a ticket for for not stopping at the red light, right? It would send a signal to you that we're not in that position to, when next you get to that junction, stop at the red light, because you know that a friend of yours has been, sanctioned for that, right? So just the mere fact that some people were kicked out based on performance, even if some had been left based on political or, nepotistic reasons, those people will not want to fall victim, so they will tighten up their belt. So yes, there might be criticism about, because there are no clear parameters where all of them were judged. There was an office headed by, I've forgotten the name, that was monitoring their output and performance and all of that. I don't know the details. The details, like you said, were not published. But in my own opinion, the mere fact that happened after about a year in office would send signal to other ministers to either sit up, put up, or put out. If you don't sit up, you are going to get kicked out, and that will also benefit the people. So yeah, we need a much more frequent review of the administration's cabinet. There's a need for cutting the cost of governance, but to me, the most important cuts were the ones that have been done in terms of the dollar exchange rate that was floated, that were either spending so much money to subsidize the life of the rich, and the first subsidy that was taken out.
No, I'm talking about the dollar exchange rate. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You just you touched a point that is pretty much critical. I know that recently during the budget proposal presentation by the president, he did say that part of the target or his goal for next year is that he wants to improve the strength of the naira from the 1,700 naira to $1 that it is right now to 1,500, by next year. And I mean, that has got a lot of people talking as to how that would happen. You also talked about inflation rates dropping from 34% that it is right now to 15%, which many consider, a major leap. But we'll go on a quick break. I would like you to respond to this. Once we return, please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This, of course, is still Politics HQ on New Central Television. At this point, we are discussing the, of course, fallout of the presidential media parley, which he had recently, just a few days back. I still have my guest with me, Charles Oludare is a public affairs analyst. He joins virtually from the United States. Thank you for staying with me, Mr. Oludare. Now, before we went on that break, I did raise two issues with you because you touched on the exchange rate, the floating of the local currency, which has affected quite a lot of businesses. For some Nigerians who feel that, removal of the subsidy and then the floating of the naira happening simultaneously, the effect is really dealing a great blow to the average Nigerian. I would like you to speak on that vis-a-vis the president's ambition to crash that, in the coming year.
Yeah, thank you very much. When the president came in, I think the official rate was 460, the parallel market was around 750. And then now it's saying the target for next year is about 1,500. I love economics, even though I'm a medical doctor. So I went and did a lot of study about these things. Just there's a concept in economics that is called impossible trinity, which says that if you peg your currency, you can only do one of two things. You can't do both. It's either you prevent money from moving in and out of your border, that is capital control, or you lose sovereign control on your currency, that is to say you can't determine your interest rate, your money becomes completely useless. So what Nigeria had been doing before before the floating of exchange rate was essentially preventing capital control. That was why a lot of people did not want to invest in Nigeria. And like the issue with the Emirates, where they would have sold tickets at the official exchange rate, but they cannot get access to their dollar. So what happened to the dollar essentially, based on my own study, is that the government stopped controlling money movements, and the demand of the dollar by Nigerians based on of just what we need became more reflective, and then that is why the money has gone this way. So I feel like the way he's thinking of bringing back the currency is the fact that we are now having local production of local refining of fuel, which will essentially lift that burden off of our foreign exchange demand. I believe that is the only real avenue by which they can achieve such a stabilization within a short period of time. But it is not the fact that he floated the economy, it's the fact that he stopped controlling capital flow. So that, and I think it's a very good thing, because you need people to want to come and invest in our infrastructure, in our electricity and all of that. When the president went to Germany, he kept on repeating it, that don't worry, your money is going to be, you have the freedom to bring in and take out your money at any time, because he knows that the investors need that confidence so that they can come and invest in our power grid, which is moribund, so that we can now start transporting electricity.
All right, talking about investments and, of course, building confidence in investing in the country, one thing the president did say is that he doesn't believe in price control. I remember one of the journalists did raise an issue as regards that, saying that since these policies came into effect, some people have taken advantage of the system, the local narrative, to say things are expensive, to increase prices astronomically, even where there is no need. A typical example is in Lagos State, even across the nation, for instance. Rent, accommodation has become something else, where someone wakes up in the morning because he's a landlord and he gives 100% increase of the current rate because he knows nobody would hold him to account. And the president said assertively in that interview that he does not believe in price control. Instead, it would open up for more supply. Even though for some economic pundits, they find that, I don't know. So I would like your take on that.
Yeah, I am also not in favor of price control in a capitalist economy. Nobody wants, you don't decide their cost price, so you can't decide their price.
So how do you ensure that there is no abuse in the system where some people take advantage to make abnormal profit because there is no regulation?
Yeah, definitely. If you're very right in terms of like there are some things whereby maybe like the issue of the landlord that you spoke about that decided to jack up his rent for no reason. Definitely, if you build more houses, it happens everywhere. Even in Texas, about 2 years ago, there was a lot of shortage of houses, and rents and mortgages were so expensive. And then when they built more houses, because there was need for this landlord to fill their houses and there were very less customers, the prices of rent went down. So if it is about using the forces of demand and supply, but the most important one is the food, whereby some people just increase the prices of food that is necessary. The president right now is waiting for Nigeria to start producing food. That journey is going to be maybe like 5 years, because there are infrastructure that need to be put behind that production to sustain it. So in my own opinion, there is no need for punitive import duties on food. The president announced it in August during the hunger strike that he was going to allow import-free duty food to come in. But then he put a poison pill by saying that it is going to be allowed for only those who have investments in Nigeria. That is why that policy, from my own understanding and the information I've been gathering, has not really resulted in the drop in the price of food, because it is essentially hoarding and shortage of supply that's making the prices that expensive. There was a man that I saw on TV that said, even in the price of cement, based on the profits that these three cement owners, manufacturers in Nigeria are making, they can afford to sell their products like 50 or 40, 60% less than what they are selling, and they'll still be making profits. And guess what? The government are the ones that are use this cement the most. They borrow money to buy it, and they are creating monopoly or oligopoly that is allowing people to jack up the price. You should allow these things that you need that are essential to enter duty-free, so that your people can have respite while you are investing in agriculture and giving your farmers the incentives and the subsidies and the grants that will allow them to grow. So when we have a good capacity to feed ourselves, importation will just naturally not be profitable. So that is how you are supposed to do it. And the president mentioned it, that the forces of demand and supply will bring down the price. But the government policies of import duty is preventing that supply right now. And like I said, food importation and food production are not mutually exclusive. They can run pari passu while your farmers grow. When your farmers grow, they will grow at a cheaper rate, and then they will outcompete the imported produce. That is what China did with automobile manufacturing. They allowed people to bring in their cars, then they allowed them to start manufacturing it in their countries. Then they learned, and then they started manufacturing cars. And now it is essentially Chinese-made cars have dominated the China market, and they are trying to sell abroad. So he needs to allow these things to come in so that Nigerians can eat today while growing food, while facing the security that has prevented farmers from going back to the farm. So these things need to happen hand in hand. That's the only way you can bring down price of food, not trying to do control.
All right. Thank you so much for your time on the program, Mr. Charles Oludare. It's been an honor having you on the show.